Au revoir. Donald Trump gives Brigitte and Emmanuel Macron a long goodbye, complete with another tug-of-war handshake, at the end of a trip to Paris for Bastille Day. President Donald Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron spent the last 24 hours insisting they have a very good relationship, in spite of their differences, but they proved Friday that old habits die hard when they engaged in another handshake battle as they said au revoir at the conclusion of the U.S. leader's visit to Paris. First Lady of France Brigitte Macron was also drawn into the tug-of-war, with Trump using both his hands to jerk the couple in. First Lady of the United States Melania Trump stood off to the side as the bizarre interaction went down. Finally free of Donald Trump's grip, Brigitte Macron grabbed Melania's hand and did not let go for several moments so that she was not left out of the group goodbye. The awkwardness didn't end there. Refusing to allow his counterpart to have the upper hand, Emmanuel Macron patted and brushed Donald Trump on the back several more times for good measure. The two couples sealed the long goodbye with European kisses. Donald and Melania were then whisked off to the airport for their day-long flight home. After the guests of honor departed, the Macrons lingered for more than 20 minutes at Place de la Concorde, shaking hands with a crowd of guests in one of the 3 viewing stands that were set up for the morning parade. They are also leaving the city today, for Nice, where they will stand in solidarity with the French men and women who were targeted in last year's Bastille Day terror attack. The U.S. president and his wife are headed back to their Bedminster, New Jersey estate for the rest of the weekend. They finished a brief trip to Paris this morning, sitting front and center in a VIP reviewing stand below the Luxor obelisk in Place de la Concorde with the President and First Lady of France, during a Bastille Day procession. A parade led by American troops in commemoration of the 100th anniversary of the United States' entry into World War I carried on for 2 hours. Brigitte Macron greeted the Trumps as the festivities began while her husband rode down the Champs-Élysées in a military jeep as part of his grand entrance. Donald Trump gave her a kiss on each cheek as he exited his presidential limo. He'd complimented her physique on Thursday in an awkward exchange that was captured on the French government's Facebook live stream. "You're in such good shape," he told the 64-year-old, who's 7 years junior to him. In the viewing stand he was seated to the right of her husband, several seats down. He and Macron were seen chatting throughout the 2-hour event that concluded with a declaration of support for liberty, equality and fraternity from the French president. "We are celebrating France. We are celebrating everything which unites us," Macron proclaimed in French that was interpreted to English through headsets for English-speaking guests. "The history of France does not begin with the storming of the Bastille," he said, "but the fight was exemplary of the ideals on which they would form their democracy." He called the U.S. a friend and said, "This is the reason why nothing will ever separate us." The president, alongside me, the President of the United States, is the sign of a friendship which has stood the test of time. And please allow me to thank them, to thank the United States of America for a choice made 100 years ago. The Trumps left for the airport immediately after the parade had finished. Trump thanks the Macrons for their hospitality in a tweet that said the relationship with France stronger than ever. In Paris for just 36 hours, the President and First Lady made the most of their visit, taking in their surroundings and cementing their relationship with the Macrons. First Lady Melania Trump spent Thursday afternoon on a tour of Notre Dame Cathedral and a boat ride down the Seine with Madame Macron. Earlier in the day, Melania and her husband visited Napoleon's tomb in Les Invalides, a military monument in central Paris, with France's first couple. While the women soaked in the scenery, the men decamped to Élysée Palace, the residence of the French president. At a joint news conference they highlighted their two countries' shared history and military coordination, dating back to the American Revolution. "Ever since General Lafayette joined the American fight for independence, our fates and fortunes have been tied unequivocally together," Trump said. "It was a long time ago but we are together, and I think together, perhaps, more so than ever. The relationship is very good. Speaking before him, Macron said, "I think it is both a symbol and very important that the President of the United States could be with us tomorrow on the occasion of our National Day, and attend a military parade." The French have celebrated the storming of the Bastille, a critical juncture in their country's revolution, with a military parade every year since 1880 on July 14. Since 1918, troops have marched down the Champs-Élysées on the national holiday, with the exception of the German occupation of France in World War II. This year's celebration coincides with the arrival of American troops 100 years ago in France on June 26, 1917. The theme of the centennial event, "Engaged in Operations Together," is a nod to their arrival and the military partnership that the US and France maintain in Iraq and Syria. As such, this year's event honored an American joint detachment. American and French aircraft participated in a flyover comprised of 49 French Air Force, 6 French Navy and 8 U.S. Air Force planes, as well. The opening drew a parallel between the technological adaptations of the Great War, which started in 1917, and the equipment used in 2017, an English-language program passed out to press said. That theme was supported by historical presentation and 8 displays, including a Schneider tank and infantry combat armored vehicle and a Renault EG-15 truck with 155 GFP and Caesar guns. The ceremony closed with musical performance of the armed forces and gendarmerie bands of the American and French national anthems. A note from Macron in the program touched on two countries' unique relationship. In 1917, the United States of America, this great country and friend of France, defending the liberty of nations, took the decision to go to war by our side. 100 years later, I wanted to have the American forces parade alongside our soldiers, our sailors and our aviators, with whom they are engaged daily in many theaters of operations. They will be opening the parade, just in front of our troops deployed in the Chamel operation. The opening performance will also highlight the technological excellence of our combatant forces, the letter said. Chamel is the French military operation in Iraq and Syria. The French have 1,200 troops there. The exact number of U.S. troops in the region assisting in the fight against ISIS has become a state secret since Trump took office, although the Military Times has placed it in the ballpark of 6,000. A Pentagon spokesman told the New York Times that the shift was made in order to maintain tactical surprise. At their news conference Thursday, President Trump hailed the ceasefire that has been in place in Syria between rebel forces and Bashar al-Assad's forces for 6 days and the retaking of Mosul, with Allied forces' help. Frankly, we're working on a second ceasefire in a very rough part of Syria. And if we get that and a few more, all of a sudden you're going to have no bullets being fired in Syria. And that would be a wonderful thing, he said.